In addition to submitting your transcripts and completing the application for admission, some colleges or universities may allow you to submit recommendation letters. The purpose of a recommendation letter is to share information about you as an applicant that may not be obvious from just looking at your transcript or your test scores. And it may be a university's way of finding out more about you from those educators who have worked with you. Now, not all schools are going to require recommendation letters. So when it comes to these letters, it is very important that you do some research to determine what is required, what is allowed, and how that should be submitted. So we're going to look at several different ways that a rec letter can be submitted. Let's start here in Naviance. We're going to click on Colleges I'm Applying to, where we find our list of schools that we have requested transcripts for. If you scroll down on this page, there's an area that says Letters of Recommendation, and then there's a link that says, please visit the Letters of Recommendation section. So we're going to go ahead and click on that link now. Once we do, it takes us to this page where we have the ability to add a recommendation letter request. Now, before you send one of these electronic requests to one of your teachers, we highly encourage you to have a conversation with that teacher to find out if they are available and willing to write the letter for you. Because once you do this electronic request, it's going to send them an email. And if they haven't heard from you at all, then they may not know if you were really serious about your request, and they may have some questions for you about it. So take the time to speak to that teacher to find out if this is something that they are able to do. Teachers are not required to write letters of recommendation for students. Once you have determined that a teacher is willing, you will select the teacher from the drop-down menu. There are quite a few teachers in our drop-down menu here. And it's not just teachers at Plano Senior High School. There are some teachers from Vines and from Clark on the list. If you have a teacher for whom you would like to have a recommendation letter request sent to, and they are not on the list, as long as that particular teacher is employed with Plano ISD, we can get them added to the list. So if it's a teacher from Vines or from Clark that you would like on the list, just let your counselor know and we can get the teacher added. But there are already quite a few teachers from those other campuses that are on the list, so your teacher may be there already. Next up, it's important for you to pay attention to what recommendation letters are allowed from your particular school. There are a few ways to handle this. One of the options here says, all current and future colleges I add to my list. This means if I ask that teacher to write me a recommendation letter, if I click this one, then it will allow them to submit their letter to any school that I apply to and put on my Naviance list. The other option is to choose specific colleges to have that teacher send it to. This is important if a school only allows a certain number of recommendation letters. For example, the University of Oklahoma only allows 2 to be submitted. So if I know exactly which teachers I would like to submit to OU, then I don't want to just select this all letters option. I want to be specific with who I ask for. Now, if you notice, there are some schools on my list that don't have a required or an allowed number. That can mean a few things. It could mean that that school just does not need letters of recommendation in order to complete an application. It could also mean that they are not accepting the letters through this Naviance system, and they have another manner of reading letters. So if you have a school like that, for example, the University of Texas at Austin, I look at it and it says none required, none allowed, 0 requested. So does that mean that UT does not want letters of recommendation? It might. So in just a moment, we're going to see how we can determine that. So let's say I am going to ask this particular teacher to write a letter for me to the University of Oklahoma. You can include some information here that helps them, but you should have already spoken to them as well. Once you hit submit request, then it will send an email to that teacher that will give them the link to upload that letter to. So you will never have to see that letter. It'll just go directly from the teacher to the school. Now let's say your school does not accept their letters through Naviance. A lot of schools do, but not all of them do. How might a teacher submit a letter for you? Let's take a look at the example of UT. So I've gone to the University of Texas at Austin's website, and I did some searching for recommendation letters, and I found this part of their webpage, applying for admission checklist. And if I scroll down through the required application materials, and I keep going to the additional materials, in this section, there's information about letters of recommendation. Now here it says you may submit up to 2 optional letters of recommendation. So that means that these letters are not required for admission, but they are optional. They have a specific place that they want you to submit those letters. Letters of recommendation are submitted via the document upload system, which means that they have their own system for submitting letters of recommendation. And you will only get access to this system after you have completed your application for admission. So when it comes to schools like UT, if they want the rec letters uploaded directly to them and not through a system like Naviance, you'll have to apply to the school first. And then once you get access to that, there will be links for how to submit that letter of recommendation. If you have any questions about how to make that happen, stop by your counselor's office and he or she can talk you through the process of how to upload that letter. So that's one example of a way to submit a letter of recommendation outside of Naviance. Now, what if your teacher does submit it through Naviance? Well, since this particular school has indicated that that's not how they want them submitted, then that letter may not ever get read by your admission counselor at UT. So please make sure you're submitting the letters the way the school is asking. Another example is here on the TCU website. Again, I'm checking out those admission requirements, scrolling through the information, and one of the requirements is both a counselor evaluation and a teacher evaluation recommendation. When I click on those, it brings up a form. TCU is one of the schools that wants the teacher and the counselor to complete a form for the student, where they're answering specific questions about that student, and then if they have a letter that they want to write, they can include that. And it gives information to that person on how to submit it. Most often, we end up faxing recommendation letters to TCU. So again, it's super important that you, as the student, take some time to go to those websites to read what the admission requirements are, and make sure that you are submitting everything in the manner that it is requiring. If you submit it differently, then they may not get the information that is needed. Now, you may also have schools that ask for or require a counselor recommendation or evaluation. For example, TCU has that listed on their website, which means that in order for your application to be complete, they have to receive this from your counselor as well. If you are applying to any schools via the Common App, they also are going to ask for a counselor recommendation as part of your application. The way that works is a little different than your teacher recommendations. For one, you will not have to go into Naviance and send your counselor one of those requests. But we do ask that you complete some information for us. Unlike your teachers who see you every day, 50 minutes a day, and have a lot of experience with you, your counselor may or may not know you as well as that teacher does. So in order for a counselor to write a letter of recommendation for you, we ask that you complete something that we call the blue packet. You can pick up one of these packets in the counseling office. You can also find it on our website. And it looks like this. If you pick it up in our office, it will be blue. If you print it out yourself, it doesn't have to be. We'll ask for some basic information, and then there is a section that asks for student prompts for you to complete some short answers that help us to get to know you a little better and give us information that we can share with the college on your behalf. If you have any questions about completing the blue packet, please speak with your counselor so that you can find out exactly what he or she needs from you in order to complete that letter of recommendation. But please be aware, if you are applying to a school that asks for a counselor recommendation or report, we're going to need this information from you in order to do that. As is the case with any school you're applying to, I can't stress enough, spend some time on their website looking through what it is that that particular school wants you to submit. What things are required, what things are optional, and when those deadlines are. Every school's website is set up similarly, so just going through the websites will help you get an idea of what the requirements are for that particular school.